This is The Stark Truth, hosted by Robert Stark. Brought to you by StarkTruthRadio.com. Robert Stark is an American journalist and political commentator. You can listen to his podcast at www.StarkTruthRadio.com.
Robert Stark here. I am joined here with California gubernatorial candidate Nickolas Wildstar. I'm sure the audience has been following, there's been a big recall in California. Nickolas Wildstar, great having you on, and I'm also joined here with Jonathan Edwards, who's co-hosting.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. It's nice to meet y'all, and it's a real pleasure to be back on this show.
And it's a pleasure to be here speaking with both of you as well as your audience. I'm happy to have an opportunity to speak with you all about, my plans on getting California back on track,
So to start things off, Wildstar, you ran for governor as a Libertarian a couple years ago, and then you were involved with the Recall campaign in California. Can you give our audience some background information about yourself, and what are the main reasons why you're running for governor?
Absolutely. Well, I've been a decade-long activist. I started out in the Occupy movement during Occupy Wall Street protests and anonymous protests, and basically evolved to where recently, as you said, was more involved in the petition effort to remove Governor Gavin Newsom. So along the way, I have always been involved in politics and just felt like if, of course, we wanted to make sure we had better leadership in office, that we started to vet them properly where it matters the most, on the street level. And that's where I've been involved, as I said, for over 10 years now, for various causes. You can check out my extensive list on YouTube of videos and posts on social media, etc., to prove exactly that. But me also seeing and wanting that change for better leadership in politics also led me to get involved myself. And the first time I ever did so was in the presidential election for Dr. Ron Paul, who ran against Barack Obama in the 2012 election. And I didn't know, but he ran against Barack Obama in 2008 when he first ran. And that was my last time voting as a Democrat, longtime Democrat, after Barack Obama sold we the people out to Wall Street, by bailing out the banks and school loan financing companies, etc. So I just saw that pretty much as being the final straw with the two-party system, and started looking for other options, and stumbled upon Dr. Ron Paul and got involved in this 2012 presidential.
Yeah, I was involved with his campaign in 2008 and 2012 as well.
Excellent. All right. So you're part of the Ron Paul revolution. Well, here we are, fast forward. And I've basically been putting all of that knowledge from what I learned working with or working on the campaign to practice, and am now running for office. I did first in 2014 as a candidate, as a write-in candidate, then ran again in 2018, where I was the Libertarian Party candidate and was endorsed by the party. So hopefully this time around, the people of California will give me an opportunity to serve and show and prove as to why someone that's like them would be best suited to represent them versus the elitist career politicians that we keep putting into power.
As far as like the issues that were brought up with the recall, like criticisms of Governor Newsom, what would you say are like your top 5 issues that you're running on?
For me, one of the first few things, of course, is the budget, the economy, even though just recently he announced that we had a surplus. That was mainly due to the amount of money that we borrow from the federal government in stimulus aid and emergency aid for this pandemic panic. So it's really not money earned, so to speak, or well deserved. And that's what I think is a problem, is the inflation of our currency by borrowing this money and using emergency aid funding to further inflate our currency by, providing stimulus payments, direct payments to people that aren't employed. But speaking of those who aren't employed, the main reason why they aren't is because of Gavin Newsom's policies. Before the lockdown, he signed a bill called AB 5, which basically prevents people from working as an independent contractor in the state. So this affected many people's professions and, those that worked for themselves, and put them out of work way before this this coronavirus crisis had happened. So it's sad that a lot of people are paying attention to what's happened since the lockdowns have been imposed, and using that more so as the basis as to why we, the people of California, are demanding his removal. But that's one of the main reasons why the majority of people that I've spoken with support the recall. Another issue is how he has dealt with homelessness. He's, over the past year now, since that a bit of, accounting has been done, spent over nearly $1 billion addressing homelessness on various programs, including Project Room Key, which over $100 million was used for, which was to place unhoused people in hotels temporarily. So it's just wasteful spending, and now he's just recently announced that he's going to spend an additional $15 billion with the B on doing so. I guess the surplus money that we now have will be further spent on, wastefully spent on trying to address these issues, which again, he hasn't done efficiently so with the amount of money that he's had. So what I'm offering to do is, of course, provide common sense solutions and basically put a small amount of money to a better use. I actually have been speaking about creating 3D printed homes, which is technology that exists today. And these 3D printed homes can be built in less than 24 hours, cost less than $5,000. They're self-sufficient, so they have their own, source of water and power. But it's been around. I've been speaking about it since my 2018 campaign for governor, and then it could have been implemented now and used to provide affordable housing, as well as, public housing to those in need. But instead, you have cities like Rancho Mirage now using that technology for commercial real estate purposes. And again, the current governor is yet to consider such an idea when we have tons of federal land that could be used to build these communities and make these homes available.
Yeah, there's been this closure of small businesses, especially during the pandemic, and then record profits going to corporations like Amazon. And then you bring up the issues with like the business licensing fees and the bill making it difficult for independent contractors. Can you talk about, on your platform, it's called the Phoenix Initiative, to roll back a lot of the economic damage that has happened during the pandemics and lockdowns?
Exactly, precisely. That's one of the first things that I'll do, is nullify that law. which again is preventing people from being able to work for themselves. And right now, that's one of the main things you want to encourage, is for people to get back to work however they see fit. And one of the other blockades to doing so is people having to obtain business licenses or business permits, or occupational licenses, etc., just to provide a service to the community. So I won't be imposing that during my term as governor, and I'll be in office. I mean, if I get elected during this recall election, I'll be in office for a little over a year before we have a gubernatorial election next year. So whoever takes over in this recall election, we, the people of California, will still have an opportunity to elect a new governor or re-elect the same governor that took over in the special election next year. So I believe in that short amount of time, what I could do is, again, just get our economy back on track by making these small differences, Of course, when it comes to affordable housing, you have home developers that would love to start building, but if they're paying tens of thousands of dollars in building permits and, zoning fees, etc., it's not going to encourage them to want to build homes. And that's what we want, is we want to be able to have an opportunity for those people that aren't able to buy a home to be able to afford one, for one, and hopefully give those people that are on the streets right now an opportunity to rent and get off the streets and get into a home themselves. So, and we definitely don't want to continue chasing away families and businesses that are leaving the state in droves to states like Texas and Florida, etc., because of them not imposing as many taxes or regulations. So that's another step that, again, I believe that if we were just to roll that back simply, we would see a lot more productivity here in the state and, a happier California.
Yeah, like there is this housing crisis in California, and there's a homeless issue, but then even people who are moderately well off are really struggling with just the insane cost of living, especially in coastal and urban areas. What are your thoughts on the whole debate about zoning and the sort of like NIMBY versus YIMBY divide, and then just the overall housing shortage, and what do you see as the solutions and the main barriers?
Well, I think the biggest issue with those people that don't want to see any type of public housing be built in their community is they fear that it's going to draw a certain type of people. It's going to degrade the property value of their own homes. Utilizing what I'm talking about, this 3D printed technology, if you look it up, it actually improves the property value of those homes in the neighboring community. So that's one thing that hopefully will deter them from thinking that with that mindset. Also, when it comes to rehabilitation for those people that may have or may need it for drug use or mental health, there's a better way for dealing with that. And of course, those people need to be helped. We shouldn't be pushing them to the side and say that they shouldn't be welcome in my neighborhood because of that. Nor is that anyone else's business for that matter. So when it comes to people living in their homes, as long as they're respectful to other people in their community and aren't being violent, just as respected as and being respectful as everyone else in the community is expecting, then there shouldn't be any problem with that. But as I said to you before, I believe that we have enough federal land here in the state to where we can start building on federal, state-owned property and utilize that to its best extent first.
I was just saying, it seems like a lot of conservatives, like, they might be opposed to that because they don't like the idea of just, like, the government giving people something for free. But it seems like that would actually be better than, like, you know, just having them live in the streets, you know, where they just have to kind of, you know, live under bridges and stuff.
Exactly. I'm a conservative myself, and when it comes to just dollars and cents, this makes more economic sense opposed to us continuing to throw money at the problem. So if we provide homes for those who need it, because you do have a certain portion of those who are unhoused who don't want, you know, to live anywhere else other than the streets, and they should be free to do so, but there comes a certain amount of responsibility with you doing so also, and that doesn't mean that you also have the liberty to litter or, you know, be violent towards other or use the public space as a restroom, you know. But if more public restrooms were available, which I myself see a problem with, just when I'm out with my family, you know, we're out downtown areas or out at some of these beaches. And when it comes to using a restroom, if you go into a restaurant, they either say it's for customers only, or, you know, you have to pay. Some of them have tokens or, you know, something to that effect. But there aren't any public restrooms available. And if they are, they're disgusting, you know. So it comes a matter of, it boils down to a matter of responsibility. And right now, our government doesn't seem to take any at all. So my job as governor will be making sure that I'm holding these state officials accountable when it comes to them providing these public services to the degree that we want them. And we want it to be the best. If we have so much money, such a vast wealth in accumulated taxes, and we have so much to where we have a surplus, there isn't any reason why we shouldn't be able to have adequate public services to, you know, just the basics.
So yeah, there's the issue with housing for the homeless, and then what are your thoughts on the price for market rate housing is insanely expensive in coastal and urban areas? What are your solutions to that? Do you think it's primarily zoning?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said to you before, one of the difficulties for home developers is they want to build more homes in those more dense areas. They want to be able to provide affordable housing, but if it costs them an arm and a leg to do so, then it's just not going to happen. So when it comes to demand and the buyer's market right now, even though they're saying, you know, I guess California is going through a housing market boom. That's mainly because you have a lot of people that are well off and, you know, deep in real estate that have the funds, the capital to continue to buy up all of the real estate, versus the average Joe. You know, they're being put out of their homes right now. They're facing evictions and foreclosures because of the economic turmoil. So I believe it's a matter of looking at the numbers in a more skeptical way, because it is inflated to some degree, and when there's proper accounting done, then we'll get down to the bottom of it, which is why I'm, you know, also proposing to do an audit first thing once assuming office.
Back to the economic concerns, for say jobs, like would you support some kind of jobs program that helps match people to jobs that they're most compatible with? And what other economic proposals for jobs do you support? And then besides jobs, like what is your thoughts on proposals for a UBI?
Well, if anything, I believe the biggest creator of jobs would be the free market. So my way to, you know, stimulate that in every way that I can would be to remove the regulations and taxation that is not promoting that in any way, shape, or form. And if anything, it's hindering that. So we will see more businesses grow and develop and start to hire people. We'll see, more industries like the cannabis industry flourish and be able to hire more people and generate more revenue for the state, because that's the biggest producer, is the people, the working class. When we take into consideration our farmers, who have been neglected this entire time and who are now facing an extended drought here, we want to make sure California continues to be able to be one of the world's largest food producers. I mean, we create over half of the nation's fruit and vegetables. So if anything, I want to be able to enable those businesses and those free market solutions to be able to create those jobs and revive our economy. When it comes to what I'd be able to do so, again, I don't think it's government's job to take taxpayers' money to so-called create jobs or infrastructure plans that would promote such a thing, when the free market would do so very quickly and more economically. So without taxpayers' money being used on doing such a thing, that's what I would turn it over to.
What's your general stance on proposals for a basic income?
That's another situation where I believe the free market could help, because with what I said about the cannabis market, I'm actually proposing to create, through my Go New Deal, a public-owned bank. So this would be a bank-owned, People's Bank of California. And I believe Bernie Sanders has spoken of the idea of community banking before. This would be extremely advantageous for the people of California, seeing as the majority of, these cannabis businesses are cash on hand businesses and aren't able to do any banking with the major banks. So if we had a community-owned bank by the people of the state, those businesses would be able to do their banking safely with our, community banks. And we also would be able to use that as a means to provide a UBI to those in need, or maybe small business loans to those that get turned away by these major banks as well, especially people of color that are certainly disadvantaged when it comes to getting those loans so they can start up their small businesses. So the People's Bank of California would provide that opportunity. This would also open the door for the cryptocurrencies and other types of, currencies, precious metal, etc., or even as state-owned currency, state-created currency, where we, the people, have our own currency that challenges and maybe even will rival the Federal Reserve note, which is what we use now, and is pretty much being devalued each and every day because of these bailouts. A lot of people don't understand economics.
Do you have a breakdown on the bailouts, both under Trump and Biden, of what percent is actually direct cash payouts as opposed to going towards state institutions or to corporations? The percentage that's actually going to direct payouts.
Well, I know California, again, is using a certain portion of the, I believe, $2 trillion that Biden just delegated to the state for emergency aid to use for monthly stimulus payments. I believe it's like $600 a month. And those will go out for, I believe, the next 48 months they're offering to some people. So it's really hard to say because of how much money has been printed and how much has been offered throughout these past few years, and without there being any proper auditing being done. That's why I'm saying that would be the first thing that I believe we should be doing. No matter who the governor is, whether it's me or another candidate, we should be demanding that of the next governor, is that it ought to be done, and we know where our money has been going. I mean, even Gavin Newsom himself, his winery has been taking loans from the Triple P loans, the Paycheck Protection Program loans. And those were meant to go to help small businesses, while instead his Plumpjack Winery is receiving, receiving emergency aid. So how can we ever really know how much or percentage or even estimate at this point when it's not really safe to say? Even the numbers every day change.
Oh, yeah. Not to digress, but I was just going to ask, aside from the cannabis industry, is there any other particular industry that you think is particularly overregulated these days in California?
As I said, the farming industry definitely is overregulated, especially when you have farmers that are in need of water to produce food. I met a farmer who uses a certain amount of water to create tomato products, whether it's ketchup or spaghetti sauce or whatever the case may be. They need water. And the government here in the state was taxing him, regulating him, again, making it a headache for him to do what he does best, which is produce food for people. And we need that to live. Versus Nestle water in the state siphons off millions, hundreds of millions of gallons of fresh water from the state, bottles it up and sells it back to us. Does it all for profit, profits over people all day. Yet they aren't regulated at all. They haven't been penalized. And again, could care less about providing a service other than more than, making money for themselves. So when it comes to government regulation and over-regulation, I would say farming, definitely our agriculture suffers because of that tremendously.
As far as regulation goes, how much of it is, do you think, just harmful? Like, are there cases where there are legitimate ecological concerns, and how do you find the right balance? Or could you give specific examples of regulations, and what are the legitimate ecological concerns, issues being brought up by climate change?
Absolutely. Well, since the cannabis industry is new, it's being heavily regulated based on its impact that it's having on the environment, because it's also something that needs water in order to grow. So you have farmers in the state who are being regulated as to how much water that they're being able to use, and how it's being, I guess, the waste is being, dealt with. But yeah, it's a matter of being responsible. And I believe that you have more watchdog groups, more independent nonprofit organizations that do a better job of, keeping accountability versus government institutions and agencies, which drop the ball all of the time. I mean, what is it? The Cannabis Board Control here in the state. They issue licenses to all of those businesses that, of course, want to sell off cannabis in the state. Well, they have a lottery process, and it's been well established that this has been based on favoritism, and there's even been exposés that have come out, multiple stories in the news about government officials pretty much taking bribes to again favoritize certain businesses over others. Kevin Faulconer, the former mayor of San Diego, who is running for governor, believe it or not, is one of those individuals. So it's crazy that, someone such as himself feels as if he can run for governor without that coming out at some point. I'm pretty sure he definitely won't get the support and backing of the people in the cannabis industry. And hopefully the people of California will pay attention to that to see how that cronyism kills innovation in the state, and it also kills the amount of economic growth in the state as well. So if we want to create more opportunities for everybody, then we got to make sure that we don't have government officials preventing that from happening.
So with the issue of criminal justice reform, what do you see as the key issues, the crucial issues of criminal justice that are unique to California, and then also part of kind of broader national issues? And how do you put forth an agenda and proposals that find the right balance between addressing criminal justice reform and then also concerns that some people have with rising crime in some urban areas?
Right. Well, California, compared to every other state, is more progressive when it comes to criminal justice reform. It's kind of crazy to say that, seeing as we're also slow and behind the ball when it comes to, let's say, policy changes like removing the Police Bill of Rights or qualified immunity, which other states have already done, like New York, of all places. But that is something that I would do immediately as governor. I believe that would increase the amount of accountability for police officers and give an opportunity for those good cops to actually stand up and do the job and, be that model of a law enforcement officer that we, the people, are demanding to see. It's sad that the amount of trust between the people of the community and the law enforcement officers have been degraded so much, and that's mainly because of the lack of training that some of these officers have received, especially when it comes to weapons training. Many officers never have even drawn their service weapon while on the job. And when it comes to training, they're not receiving weapons training as frequently enough to even, be comfortable with using it, let alone be put in a situation where, they're forced to use it and are able to do so without, killing someone. And that law change actually was just implemented in Sacramento, where Stephon Clark, a black man who was shot and killed in his grandparents' backyard, was killed by Sacramento police because he had a cell phone in his hand. They believed he had a gun when really it was a cell phone. And this happened back in 2018. Since then, Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law the Stephon Clark law, which was supposed to quell the amount of excessive force used by police officers. But since he signed that into law back in, I believe it was August of 2019, there's been nearly 200 officer-involved shootings to date. And just recently, the city officials in Sacramento chose to change the language of laws there in the city to where officers aren't allowed to use excessive force or, fatal force unless it's, of course, the last means. So that's something that needs to be implemented on the state level as well. As I said, another way to do it is to provide more accountability, and instead of taxpayers having to pay for these lawsuit settlements out of their pockets, require for police officers to carry their own liability insurance. That way, if there is, an accident or some police shooting, and they're found to be at fault for that again, that those payments come out of their own pockets versus we the people's. And I believe that'll be another way to start seeing a reduction of at least the amount of police abuse in the state. That'll put us on the pathway, and I'm pretty sure with just those few changes, we'll see a significant drop altogether.
There is a really kind of polarized culture war, and some of the different states are proposing different laws. So I was reading that some jurisdiction in Texas is talking about banning critical race theory, and the other issue getting brought up is tech companies and viewpoint discrimination. And I've heard some criticisms of Florida with Governor DeSantis, specifically that particular version of tech censorship would do more to protect politicians than individual citizens. It's an issue of freedom of speech, and then also part of a broader culture war. So what is your stance on those particular issues of calling to ban critical race theory, and then also calls to regulate tech companies to protect against viewpoint discrimination? Your thoughts on those particular issues, then also your thoughts on the really kind of polarized culture war in general, and do you think that differences can be reconciled?
Okay, I'm trying to follow you here with your questions. With regards to Texas and its, attack on school choice, I believe that government shouldn't be involved in school choice at all. I mean, when it comes to any type of educational studies or curriculum choice, that should all be between the parents, the students, and the educators. I don't believe that government should be involved in that process, which is why, as governor, I plan on getting our state government out of our educational system.
So you're talking about something like vouchers?
Just leave it up to local.
Which is to localize education.
Exactly. Localize the education. That would be the best way to where, again, parents have more control over what their children are taught. That's mainly what they want. And especially when it comes to curriculum and, the books that are being read to them in schools, parents would be better off if they had that type of control. Right now, they don't at all. And that's mainly because the money is being redistributed. It's being taken from them as taxpayers, whether they're paying sales tax, property tax, whatever the case may be. They're paying these taxes, and the money is being used to redistribute and being used in other areas where you have certain parents that would love to see the schools in their own communities be better, but they're not seeing those type of improvements. They're seeing schools in other areas where they have more funding actually get the majority of that funding. So there's more favoritism happening there as well with the delegation of public funds to help those schools. So that's a problem. And as I said before, I don't think government should be involved in curriculum choice. So that's just mainly my position on that. Nothing in the Constitution even, supports that government should be creating an educational system to begin with anyway. So it's unconstitutional for government to even be involved in the process. But Texas is a different state, Arkansas, Florida, whatever the case may be. That's why I believe that the people of California would be more supportive of my proposals, because you have certain people in certain areas that feel that way, and because they do or don't want to have their children be taught certain things, they should be able to make that choice overall. I forgot the rest of what you...
Yeah, I asked about proposals, the role that the state should play in big tech companies involved in viewpoint discrimination and deplatforming, and then just thoughts on the really divisive culture war in general.
Okay. Now, with regards to the whole tech company deal, I support free market solutions. Unfortunately, I've been deplatformed before by Facebook, by Twitter. I've been in Facebook jail, Twitter jail before, and it's a shame that that has happened. But these are companies in there, it's their platform, and they get to call the shots. So
well, the thing is, like, they're so massive in power. If they have a monopoly, then that's not a free market.
Exactly. Now that's the problem, is when you have special interest groups, again, creating certain policies through their cozy relationships with government officials, putting it in their favor, So yeah, we do need to make sure that they don't have the monopoly on it, that they do have an opportunity for, or we, the people, have an opportunity to try other providers. When it comes to internet service providers here in the state, there's a monopolization on that. That loophole got closed up a while back when you had some smaller companies that got shut out because they were providing a more competitive service and were pretty much taking away a certain amount of business away from AT&T and Verizon and some of these larger companies. But they shouldn't be zoned out from being able to provide their services to certain neighborhoods. I mean, that's the way it is here in California. I don't know where it is anywhere else, but these technology companies have districts that they provide their service to. So in my district, you can only get serviced by Time Warner, who is now they changed their name to something else. So
Spectrum, I think.
Exactly. They become Spectrum.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is they keep changing their names and taking over larger areas where they're, pushing out the little guy from being able to provide a competitive service. So that's the biggest thing that needs to happen. As far as the cancel culture, I guess, or this dualistic divide that's happening right now in our country, it's all manufactured. It's sad that a lot of people don't see it as being that way, as, a way to pit us against each other and, continue the whole divide and conquer game. But the more they can have us go to the extremities of either the right or the left, then everybody in between suffers because of that warring going on. And tribalism in politics has really killed us. It's sad that, you can really be defined by a color now, like a gang, and be treated as such. If you're wearing red or wearing blue in a certain neighborhood, you will be attacked. And that's not based on gang affiliation. That's based on political belief. of someone thinking that, hey, if you wear those colors, you have a certain set of ideals. And that's not true. I hope to shatter that concept with my campaign. Since I am running as a Republican, I'm not a red hat Republican. I'm not ultra red. I'm fiscally responsible, yet socially liberal. And I believe the people of California are exactly that. They're more libertarian than they think. And, I hope to attract them with my campaign, and if given the opportunity, serve them and show exactly why a candidate such as myself would be best suited.
We did talk about the Golden New Deal as far as public banking. Do you want to explain that more kind of broadly, like what exactly is the Golden New Deal? It includes components of transit, energy, public banking, and local-based beautification projects.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the left, I guess, progressives have their Green New Deal, which focuses on renewable technologies and improving our environment by doing so. But it still puts the majority of the power of control in the hands of, big tech and big oil and, big Wall Street. It does not serve we the people, which is why we haven't seen any fruits from all of those, I guess, policy proposals over the past few years. So with my Gold New Deal, it basically offers to do the same thing, shifts us to renewable energy such as solar power and hydroelectricity, etc. But we, the people, benefit from that. Like I said, with my People's Bank, that's one example. The other would be a people's-owned utility, which I believe would be extremely advantageous for us right now, especially with, seeing what's happening or what had happened in Texas with their power failure, our multiple power failures here in the state due to PG&E and SoCal Edison, and how we need to be independent and making sure that we have an energy source that's reliable and, a power grid that's going to be there when we need it the most. Without it, we're pretty much set back to the dark ages. So it would be extremely advantageous for us if we were to make that a priority right now more than ever. With my people's own utility, this would be, again, one that's based on renewable energies, solar power, hydroelectricity, etc. Maybe even Tesla, what is it called? The Gigafactory. Yes, that's part of the transportation deal as well. We have a high-speed rail that we're spending money, hundreds of millions of dollars on, but not seeing be built at all. So I believe we should give up that project, the naming rights to that and development to another company like Tesla, who may develop a Hyperloop or Virgin or, some other company that wants to come along and provide another, state-of-the-art transportation system. So whether it's a Hyperloop or a high-speed rail or whatever the case, we're going to get that government red tape out of the way and give them the opportunity to have that developed. Back to the people's own utility, I think by doing so also, we would be able to provide free power to the people of California, which we could benefit from, pretty much make a profit off of that by selling off any extra electricity to some of these larger corporations that may use it, or, another state, etc. But we can also resolve our water drought issue by using what I've found are atmospheric water generators. These are basically machines that create water out of thin air. We were to line up our coast with these AWGs. It would be an opportunity for us to have an abundance of water and never experience another drought ever again. I've even spoken with the creator of this technology, and he would love to have the opportunity to use California as an example of how, with these machines, you'd never have to worry about water ever again. So these are, again, common sense solutions that exist that I basically just packaged them up and are saying to the people of California, hey, if you give me an opportunity to, use all of this existent innovative technology and resources available to us, it'll benefit everyone. We'll be in a happier California. We'll be a more prosperous California. We will have less homelessness. We will have more food, not only for ourselves, but to sell to other parts of the country and even the world, and with us beautifying our state, as beautiful as the state is, it's being downtrodden right now with the homelessness and the amount of pollution that's going on. I think it's just been discovered that there was about 25,000 tons of DDT, I believe, or off of the coast.
I think it was Palos Verdes.
Yes. Our water definitely is becoming toxic and polluted, and we need to do something about it. And we all share this planet. We all share our land, our environment, and we need to take care of it if we want to live. Us, our children, our children's children, and generations to come. So if we want to conserve that, the best way to do that is to, again, spend a little bit of money and make sure that we never have to worry about it again. And so those people that say they're conservatives that may argue against my idea of, I guess, creating a people's owned electricity, where we have free electricity, is why would you want to continue paying an electricity bill for the rest of your life when you can create your own?
And you are running as a Republican, and we have this one-party monopoly with the Democrats. Besides criticisms of one-party rule, which obviously is bad for democracy, you've been involved with alternative parties like the Libertarian Party in the past. What are your thoughts on the current state of California's Republican Party, and do you see them as viable as an alternative? And what would your vision be for a revitalized California Republican Party?
Well, right now, the California Republican Party is very reflective of the National Republican Party, meaning it's in disarray, it's broken, and is in need of a rebranding. And that's why I'm doing my best to get involved and present myself as a new image for the Republican Party, because the Republican Party or Republicans of California are completely different. They don't really care about someone's sexual orientation or if they, use marijuana or whatever the case may be. They just don't want government involved in someone's personal choice or want to have to pay for it as a taxpayer, which is understandable. So I believe that the Republicans here in the state have an opportunity to take advantage of the broken down one-party system that the Democratic Party has presented to us by being in control over the past decade and seeing our state in a destructive state. So if they want to get rid of Gavin Newsom, you're not going to be able to prop up someone like Trump and think that you're going to win California. It's not going to happen. If you put up somebody like me, you definitely have an opportunity to win, because you're, again, going to be able to attract those people that are looking for the solutions that they wanted to see from the Democratic Party, but haven't seen it all, have an opportunity of achieving that with me as governor. So I'm encouraging the people of California to basically do what I do. And that's bounce around party to party. I mean, you don't have to be completely committed to a particular political party and be a party hopper. But the political parties are the ones choosing these candidates. They're the ones creating the amount of money used to fund these campaigns. So if we want to be involved in that process, then we have to get out there and be active in doing so. So I'm basically proposing for people to join me in joining the Republican Party, reforming it on the precinct level. There's a neighborhood precinct committee program right now being constructed and being used across the nation by the MAGA gang, you know, in other more red more red areas across the country. But I believe we can implement that here in California and use it to our advantage to pretty much, again, challenge the Democrats, challenge Governor Newsom, and get somebody such as myself in office, a real representative of we the people.
Are you making the case for an independent California part of your campaign, Calexit?
Certainly. To me, California independence is a big priority. As I said, having our own power source, having our own water supply, having our own money supply. And I'll do everything in my power as governor to make those changes so we can become more of an economic superpower than we are now. We're the sixth largest economy in the world. We can easily climb up that economic ladder by making sure that we're not borrowing more from the federal government than, you know, we loan them. Or basically giving them more money than we're borrowing from them, since we are a donor state. So we need to separate that, sever those ties, and in that relationship where we're borrowing and spending from the federal government, and establish some independence here in the state. And I think the people of California could benefit from it. I don't think they'd see much of a difference, because it's simply just a business relationship change. Geographically, we won't be picking up and moving physically away from the United States. But if we aren't imposing federal regulations anymore, if we aren't imposing any federal taxes anymore, if we aren't imposing any federal laws anymore, the people of California would be more liberated because of it. And that's what California independence is all about. And I believe I'll be able to achieve that as governor. And if need be, then we will declare ourselves to be a nation state as we are.
On your website, you have a link, Free Wildstar. You were charged for contempt for over-recording in court, and your constitutional rights were violated, but do you believe this was political targeting?
Indeed. I actually used to live in Fullerton in Orange County, and am well known by city officials for kind of being a pain in the ass. So I ended up suing the city of Fullerton for a civil rights abuse because I was walking to work and was arrested by a police officer for fitting a description, a typical case of walking while black. And I had to fight off criminal charges because I was charged with resisting arrest, even though, again, as I said, the officer had no reason to stop me and accost me and arrest me, other than me being black. And that's how I fit the description. And thankfully, I was able to beat off these criminal charges in court. And that's the way our law system is First, you have to prove that you were innocent. Once you do so, then that validates your civil rights claim and or, lawsuit against the city or state. So once I beat the charges, again, sued the city of Fullerton and won. And I don't think that made them happy. Next thing you know, I had a warrant out for my arrest for a video that I had made a
So
year
to make
before.
things clear, so recording in court, that is protected under the law?
Correct. It's a constitutionally protected right. I mean, it's already been established across the country in certain circuit courts, 9th district, I believe. It's called the Glick decision, where someone, a pedestrian, was recording police officers while they were arresting someone, and they arrested the person doing videotaping, saying that they were, I guess, violating, privacy laws. But this was overturned, and it hasn't been established by the Supreme Court. But as I said, under the United States Constitution, the First Amendment, you have the right to freedom of press. Your Sixth Amendment right, you have a right to a fair and public trial. Public, and a courthouse is a public place. It's no more public than a library or a post office or any other place, city hall or whatever the case. So you, as a person of the public, can record, activity in that public place. Not to mention, this was my own court case. And this is what I was documenting for the record. And everything that happens in court supposedly is on the record. So I was just mainly doing it for, accounting. But the judge contested against it and basically told me to put away my cell phone. I told him no, I'm going to continue to record to do so. And this happened twice at 2 traffic courts. And in traffic courts in California, there is no court recorder present. So everything that happens in traffic court is technically off the record. So I was again recording in court and was thrown out. But after this lawsuit happened, I ended up finding out I had warrants out for my arrest for disorderly conduct, or pardon me, for contempt of court, for recording in court. And these charges came in almost a year after these incidents happened. So, the statute of limitations was about to expire. I had just sued them, and they conveniently found a way to charge me additionally for this incident. So I didn't even find out about it. I was driving out one day with my family and was arrested for these warrants that I didn't even know existed, and ended up going to court to deal with these new criminal charges. And when I did this time, I was not recording, at least to the court's knowledge. And I had a discussion with the judge about the charges at hand, and was arrested right there on the spot for contempt of court. And I was held in jail for 9 days. I missed my son's first Christmas. This happened around Christmas of 2019. And I got out just in time for New Year's. And when I was
of this year,
released, 2019. Yeah. So when I was released, I was also given a new court date where I had new charges for contempt of court for the court appearance I just had and was just arrested for. So a lot of dirty kind of backhanded things were going on, including during my trial, where when the jury were given their jury instructions, were told certain language. They were basically told that constitutional rights didn't matter. This had everything to do with disobeying a court rule. Court rules are not laws, you know. And even though there was a court rule saying you had to basically receive permission from the court first before you decided to record in court, it's again a court rule. So it wasn't voted on by voters. It wasn't passed by legislators. It was just, you know, a court-made rule, basically. Same thing with not being able to have a cell phone in court. That's another court-appointed rule. And basically, they were informing the jurors that of all of this information. I had said something during my testimony about how there's a California law that allows a person to record a public official during an arrest. And I said this law exists so you can record public officials in a public place. And, you know, my attorney went to reiterate this during her closing argument and was objected to by the prosecutor, and the judge sustained it. And this is really unusual that during a closing argument, you know, that whatever's being said would be objected to. So there were a lot of things that happened during my trial. As I said, the suppression of, you know, constitutionality of my actions was a big red flag. And I ended up being found guilty. I was sentenced to 40 hours community service, a year probation, about $600 in fines, etc. So it definitely, what happened to me is definitely an example of another failure of our criminal justice system, to where even constitutional rights don't matter, no matter who you are, you know?
So you're completely cleared as of now?
No, now that I said, like, I've been sentenced, so now I'm just fulfilling my sentencing. But I am also appealing the charges, so hopefully I will be vindicated. I'm waiting to see what happens with that, but the appeals process is slow. Who knows when things will be concluded? It could be sometime this year, it could be next year, it could be 5 years from now, who knows? But I'm in it to win it and make sure that I stick it out, because I know for sure that, you know, if and when I'm able to be successful in having my name be cleared, this will also become an opportunity to become case law for the people in California. That way, if they're ever faced with the same situation where they're recording, you know, a state official, whether it's a police officer or a judge in a courtroom, that their right to do so is protected, you know? So I'll battle it out. Hopefully I'll win in the appeals court. If not, I'll take it to the Supreme Court if need be, you know?
Wildstar, is there anything else about your campaign that you'd like to add? And also, do you want to plug your campaign site or any other site?
Indeed. I would like everybody out there that would like to shift our political system away from the duopoly, you know, the big banks, the powers that be, the major corporations, the corporatists, the crony capitalists, the crooked politicians, the career politicians. You know, if you want to shift the power that's been in their hands this entire time back into the hands of we the people of the community, the working class, the teachers, you know, the roofers, everybody, if you want to make sure that shift happens this time around, because with this special election, it creates a unique opportunity for us to, again, select a new governor without any bias. We can win an election with over 35%, and all we have to do is get mobilized to make that happen and get that candidate elected. So please join Team Wildstar by visiting my website, wildstar2022.com. That's wild like an animal, not the John Cox bear kind, but the wild animal that he had.
Oh, yeah.
And star like in the sky. So wildstar2022.com. Visit my website. Fill out one of those pledge cards so you can join Team Wildstar. Please make a contribution, because I am 100% funded by we the people. I'm not funded by any lobbyists, any unions, and any special interest groups, etc. So we got to fight fire with fire, and it is going to cost a certain amount of money in order for me to be able to compete. It's not going to cost a lot, so please contribute whatever you can. Again, on my website, wildstar2022.com, and let's bring back liberty to California today.
Wildstar for governor, great show, and thanks for being on, and also thanks, Jonathan Edwards.
Well, thank you. It's been a real pleasure. And good luck on your court case.
Oh, thank you. It's over now. So now it's just good luck on winning the election. Well, thank you both for that.